I first saw the doll at the estate sale. Porcelain skin, lifeless glass eyes, and a faint crack running down its cheek. Something about it felt off, but I couldn't explain why. My hand trembled as I picked it up. The old man selling it smirked as he muttered, "I'll reveal things you're not ready to know." That strange warning stayed in my head as I paid for it. That night, I placed the doll on the mantelpiece, convinced my unease was just my imagination. But as I lay in bed, I swore I heard faint whispers coming from the living room. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, but deep down, I knew better. The whispers had sounded almost like my name. The next morning, the doll wasn't on the mantel anymore. It was on the table, facing my chair. I lived alone, and I hadn't moved it. My stomach churned as I noticed its cracked cheek seemed slightly wider than before. Was it just my imagination? I grabbed it to inspect it closer, but my hand recoiled when I heard it. A faint, raspy whisper right by my ear. "Don't forget the blood on your hands," it said. The room was silent, but the words echoed in my mind. I stared into its unblinking eyes, my reflection warped in the glassy surface. I tried to laugh it off as stress from work. A talking doll? Ridiculous. But as I turned to leave, I felt a tug on my shirt. My pulse pounded as I refused to look back at the table. The doll couldn't have moved, could it? That night, the whispers started again, clearer this time. "You shouldn't have ignored me," it said in a voice so quiet it felt like it was inside my head. "I know what you did," it continued, the words cold and cutting. My skin crawled, and I buried my head under the pillow. The next morning, the doll was sitting upright on my bed. Its head was tilted, almost like it was watching me sleep. I threw it back onto the mantel and muttered, "Enough of this nonsense." My hands shook as I poured myself coffee. The whispers started earlier that night, almost as soon as the sun dipped below the horizon. This time, it spoke of things no one should know. It whispered secrets about my past, things I hadn't told a soul. The weight of its words pressed on my chest, suffocating me. "Leave me alone," I shouted, slamming the doll into a box and locking it in the closet. For the first time, the house was silent, but at 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of scratching. It was coming from inside the closet. "Let me out," the voice hissed, louder than before. My entire body froze as the doorknob started to turn on its own. The door creaked open, and the box was on its side. The doll sat upright on top of it, staring straight at me. I grabbed it and drove to the edge of town, throwing it into the river. My hands were trembling as I watched it sink beneath the water. For the first time in days, I felt relief. But as I turned back to my car, it was sitting on the hood, dripping wet. My scream echoed in the empty night, but no one was around to hear it. The doll's cracked cheek now ran all the way to its mouth. It tilted its head and whispered, "You can't get rid of me." My knees buckled as I stumbled into the driver's seat. I sped home, throwing it into the fireplace as soon as I arrived. The flames roared, and the doll twisted and writhed in the fire, but it didn't burn. Instead, its eyes seemed to glow, and the whispers became screams. I backed away, tripping over the coffee table, as the room filled with the sound of cracking porcelain. Then, silence. The doll was gone. All that remained was ash and a faint outline of its face on the wall. That night, I dreamed of a porcelain face staring at me, its whispers louder than ever. I woke up drenched in sweat, the sheets tangled around me. The house felt different, heavier, as if the walls were closing in. I told myself it was over, but deep down, I knew the truth. The next day, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. The message read, "You can't hide from me." My breath hitched as the attachment loaded. A picture of the doll sitting on my bed. I checked every room, every closet, but it wasn't there. Yet the faint sound of porcelain scraping against wood followed me wherever I went. At night, the whispers returned, more demanding than ever. "You'll never be free." My friends stopped replying to my messages after I confided in them. They probably thought I was losing my mind, but I wasn't crazy. I could feel the doll's presence even when it wasn't there. The sound of porcelain footsteps haunted me day and night. I started sleeping with the lights on, though it made no difference. One night, I woke up to find it sitting on my chest, its cracked face inches from mine. Its mouth had opened just enough to whisper, "You're mine now." I'll never forget the feeling of its cold porcelain hand on my face. The next thing I knew, I was waking up on the floor. The doll was gone, but the whispers were inside my head now. They're always there, growing louder with each passing day. I tried moving to a new house, but it followed me. Every night, it appears in a new corner of the room. I don't know how much longer I can take this. The whispers are turning into screams, and I'm starting to black out. If you ever see a doll like this, don't take it home. Burn it. Destroy it. Do whatever it takes to keep it away. I'm leaving this as a warning in case I disappear. If you're seeing this, it might already be too late for me. I thought the whispers were bad before, but last night, they started calling me by my name. They said it with a tone so chilling. It felt like ice running through my veins. The doll's head turned slightly when I walked into the room today. I told myself it was just my imagination, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. I found an old journal tucked in the doll's box. The handwriting was scratchy and erratic, filled with warnings about listening to the whispers too closely. It feeds on fear, one entry read. The more you listen, the more control it gains. I slammed the journal shut, but the words burned into my mind. Last night, I locked the doll in a cupboard, thinking that would stop the whispers. At 3 a.m., the cupboard door creaked open, and the whispers were louder than ever. The doll was sitting in the middle of the floor, staring at me with its lifeless glass eyes. My chest tightened as I realized I never moved it there. I decided to throw the doll out today. As I drove to the dump, the car radio crackled with static, and a faint whisper began. "Don't leave me." When I reached the dump, the doll was no longer in the back seat. My stomach sank, and I sped home, hoping this was all just a nightmare. Back home, the doll was sitting on my bed, its dress pristine despite the muddy road. I felt the air leave my lungs as the whispers started again. "You can't escape," it said. "We're bound now." I didn't know what that meant, but I felt an invisible weight settle over my shoulders. I tried burning the doll in the fireplace. The flames roared and engulfed it, but when the fire died down, the doll was untouched, sitting amidst the ashes. Every clock in my house stopped at exactly midnight. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint whispers echoing through the walls. I called a friend over, desperate for help. The moment they stepped into the house, they froze, their eyes locked on the doll. "It's watching us," they whispered. My friend refused to stay, leaving me alone with the doll. As they walked out, the whispers shifted, laughing softly, as if mocking my isolation. I haven't slept in days. Every time I close my eyes, I hear the whispers growing louder, more demanding. "Listen, obey," they chant. The journal had a new entry this morning, written in the same scratchy handwriting. It wasn't there before. "It's inside now. You let it in." I've started hearing footsteps at night, slow and deliberate. They stop right outside my bedroom door, but when I look, no one's there. The doll's face is changing. Its once blank expression now has a faint smirk, and its eyes seem to follow me no matter where I go. I tried smashing the doll with a hammer. The porcelain cracked, revealing something dark and pulsing underneath. I dropped the hammer in shock. The whispers are no longer confined to the night. They follow me everywhere now, even at work. My coworkers keep asking why I'm so jumpy. I've started seeing shadows move in the corner of my vision. They're quick, darting away when I try to focus on them. The journal's pages are filling up with warnings I've never written. One page read, "It wants more than your fear. It wants you." I've barricaded the doll in a box, sealed with duct tape and chains. But the whispers seep through, as if the box isn't even there. My phone's voice assistant activated on its own today. It repeated the same phrase over and over. "Do you hear it too?" The doll's laugh echoed in my dreams last night. It was high-pitched and cruel, a sound that made my skin crawl even after I woke up. I found scratches on the walls this morning, deep and jagged. They spelled out one word, mine. The power went out last night, plunging the house into darkness. The only light came from the doll's eyes, glowing faintly in the corner. I tried leaving the house, but every road seemed to lead back home. It's like the doll's presence is warping reality itself. The journal had another message today. "You'll never be free." I'm starting to believe it's right. My reflection in the mirror is changing. It's slower, delayed, as if it's moving of its own accord. The whispers have started saying my name in different voices, voices of people I know. It's like the doll is trying to confuse me. I've stopped eating. The whispers say I don't need food anymore, and every time I try, I feel nauseous. The doll's smirk has turned into a grin, wide and menacing. Its teeth are sharp now, jagged like broken glass. I've started writing things I don't remember. Pages of warnings and symbols cover my walls, but I have no memory of doing it. The whispers have turned into screams, deafening and relentless. I can't think, can't focus. All I hear is obey. My friend came back today, but they weren't themselves. Their eyes were empty, their voice hollow as they said, "It's your turn now." The doll's head moved on its own, tilting slightly as if acknowledging me. It's waiting for something, but I don't know what. Every electronic device in my house has stopped working. The only sound is the doll's whispers, growing louder by the second. The journal's final message appeared today. "You're almost ready." Ready for what? I don't want to find out. Last night, the whispers stopped. The silence was worse. It felt like the calm before a storm. I woke up to the doll staring at me from the dresser, its glassy eyes shining unnaturally in the dark. A chill ran through me as it whispered, "They're coming for you." I froze, trying to convince myself I was dreaming, but the sound of footsteps outside shattered that illusion. The whispers grew louder, and the doll's mouth moved ever so slightly. "Don't run," it hissed, just as the doorknob rattled violently. My breath caught as I realized the footsteps weren't just outside. They were all around. I grabbed the doll and shoved it into a bag, desperate to silence it. But the whispers didn't stop. They were inside my head now, like a sinister melody I couldn't escape. The door burst open, and a shadowy figure loomed in the doorway. Its voice was low and distorted. "You shouldn't have taken her." I stumbled backward, clutching the doll, and the figure stepped closer. It wasn't human. Its face shifted and melted like smoke. The doll suddenly laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in the small room. "He's here to collect," it said, and the figure lunged at me. I screamed and threw the doll at the shadow, and for a moment, they seemed to merge into one. The room grew darker, the walls closing in like a coffin. Somehow, I found myself outside, standing in the rain. The doll was still in my hand, but the shadow was gone. Or so I thought. I felt a sharp pain in my chest, like icy fingers gripping my heart. I looked down and saw a faint, smoky tendril wrapping around me. The whispers returned, but this time they weren't coming from the doll. They were coming from inside me. "You belong to us now," the voices said in unison, a chorus of sinister intent. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head as the world spun. I stumbled back to my house, desperate to find a way to stop this. But every reflection in the windows showed something behind me, something that wasn't there when I turned around. The doll began to hum a tune, one I recognized from childhood but couldn't place. It was haunting, almost hypnotic. I locked myself in the bathroom, trying to think, trying to breathe. But the lights flickered, and the whispers turned to screams. The mirror cracked without warning, and I saw my own face staring back. But it wasn't me. My reflection smiled, its eyes black as night. "We're already inside," it said, and I felt my body move against my will. My hands reached for the doll, cradling it like a lost child. I tried to scream, to fight back, but my voice was gone. The whispers were all-consuming now, drowning out my thoughts. The doll's eyes glowed red, and I saw flashes of others who had owned it before me. Their fates were sealed, their souls trapped. "You're next," the doll said, and I felt the room grow colder. Shadows crept along the walls, inching closer. My phone buzzed, breaking the spell for just a moment. It was a message: "Get rid of it. Burn it, before it's too late." I ran outside, the rain soaking me to the bone. I built a fire in the backyard, my hands trembling as I threw the doll into the flames. It screamed an unearthly, bone-chilling sound that seemed to shake the ground. The shadows writhed and dissipated, but the whispers remained. I thought it was over until I felt a sharp pain in my hand. I looked down to see a small burn mark, shaped like the doll's face. The whispers quieted, but I knew they weren't gone. They were waiting, lurking in the shadows. Weeks passed, and I tried to move on, but strange things kept happening. Lights flickered, objects moved on their own, and I always felt watched. One night, I received another message. It's not over. Check the mirror. My heart sank as I turned toward the bathroom. The mirror was fogged, but a single word was written in the condensation. Run. I felt a presence behind me and turned slowly. There was nothing there, but the air was thick with dread. The doll was gone, but its curse wasn't. I could feel it, a weight on my soul, growing heavier each day. I've tried everything to rid myself of this, but nothing works. And now I'm warning you. If you ever see a doll like the one I described, leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't even look at it. And if you've already taken one home, it's too late. The whispers have already started, haven't they? They'll get louder, more insistent. They'll tell you things about yourself, things no one else could know. You'll think you can fight it, but you can't. The doll's curse is relentless, and it always wins. If you're hearing whispers now, you need to comment below. Tell me what they're saying. Maybe, just maybe, we can figure this out together. But be quick. The shadows are spreading, and they're coming for you next. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell. There's more you need to know. Click the playlist now. It might be the only thing that can save you. Hurry, before it's too late.